What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. So this year for me has been full of a few really amazing scrub python breeding first for myself, but this one that I'm showing you guys today may be the one that I'm most proud of. These being my first ever second generation captive bred scrub pythons, and these ones being Barnecks, the ones that I have worked with for the longest, the ones that I have bred the most of, and the project that's probably the closest to my heart. These animals are from some incredible lineage that traces back over 20 years, from some of the best scrub pythons to have ever lived, and the babies are just absolutely out of this world. I can't wait to show them to you guys. Without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so here we go, baby number one. And as I said in the intro, this is an F2 or second generation captive bred Barneck scrub python. But beyond that, these babies come from some of the best, if not the best, lineage of Barneck scrub pythons in the entire world. And that may sound arrogant coming from me, but I think there definitely is the history to back it up, especially considering there isn't really that much as far as historical lineage within Barnecks goes. But with that said, on the sire side, it is the Rain lineage that was originated by VPI, Dave and Tracy Barker. And on the dam side is what I have been tentatively calling my melanistic line. That line name is not super indicative of the actual snakes themselves, but more comes from the fact that the matriarch of the lineage, the original wild-caught female, was almost solid black, and not just when she was hormonal or gravid, but every single day of the year. She was over 90% black, the darkest Barneck scrub python I have ever seen. And while none of the babies that she has produced have had that black phenotype, they have been very, very weird. And later on in the video, I'll show you some updates of some of her offspring, as well as, of course, the mom, who is her daughter, to kind of give you guys an idea of just how strange and unique that lineage is. I truly believe that there is some sort of genetic component to that original founder wild-caught female, but only generations to follow will prove that. This animal right here, obviously pre-first shed, has a lot of really cool banding, very strong, not super thick banding, which is pretty indicative of the Rain lineage. But what's really cool about it, and we'll not really know more until the first shed, but those bands are not black, which maybe they're going to grow into the black coloration over time, but they're almost kind of purple, which I think is extremely fascinating. The purple baby coloration has been something that has been present in this quote-unquote melanistic line now through multiple generations, which again I'll get into a little bit more later. But the fact that the banding is not black, the first time I've ever seen that on a Barneck, and something that I really just could not be more excited to see what that turns into and what the future kind of holds as far as that look. All right, so here is the second baby. I forgot to mention, but that first one we looked at was a female. This is also a female, and some pretty interesting differences in the pattern. As you can see, the pre-first shed, hard to really tell, but that pattern is very present in this animal. A lot of cool portholes on the side that weren't necessarily as present on that last animal. And kind of overall, that atypical baby coloration, some of that kind of purplish hue coming in, not quite as strong as that last one, but still pretty present. But to explain a little bit more about the lineage on the sire's side, the Rain lineage that, like I said, originated from Dave and Tracy Barker at VPI. The lineage really is extraordinarily strong. The individual whose name was Rain was one that was produced by the Barkers, an F1 animal. We'll throw a picture of him up on the screen right now. For many years, and maybe even still today, this animal is kind of known as the standard of the most beautiful example of a Barneck scrub python ever. I know that selfishly I could probably point to some animals in my collection that I would say rival him. But with that said, Rain was absolutely amazing. And from what I heard, he was about 14 or 15 feet long as well. So an absolute monster of a Barneck scrub python, a top 0.01% animal. And unfortunately, very little of that lineage is truly still out there. Aside from the grand dam of these babies right here, these babies are the only living progeny of that lineage, to my knowledge, in the entire world. So that makes them, for one, very special and important to me, but also very special and important to their lineage to make sure that that Rain line sticks around for the long haul. So while these are technically F2 captive bred, this is theoretically fourth generation captive bred on the mom side, But when counting generations, it does not work that way. That's kind of like the lowest common denominator because the female was an F1 and the male was an F2. His sire was wild caught. These animals are F2. F1 to F2 makes F2. But with fourth generation captive bred lineage on the, or at least on one part of the sire's side, from the side that originated from the animal called Rain. So some really amazing history with these snakes. You know, scrub pythons are still very much in their infancy as far as captive breeding and lineage goes. So to have animals that can be traced back to the early 2000s, Rain, I believe, was born in 2000 or 2001, to me is very special because ideally I would like this lineage to live on for decades and decades, even centuries to come. So to be able to trace the animals back that far, to me, is very special and what makes a lot of this life of herpetoculture so fun. All right, here is baby number 3. Probably the most typical looking of the clutch, which isn't saying a lot considering that they all look pretty freaking wacky. But you can already see pre-first shed, pretty strong pattern that is kind of like a pinstripe kind of striping with some good spacing in between. I feel like this is something that is a little bit indicative of the Rain line, kind of that wider band spacing, but still high contrast. That thing is really cool. Kind of gets a little bit thicker here towards the mid-body, fading into that solid tail that, by the looks of things, I assume will be a light-colored tail. The Rain line honestly did not have a consistent theme as far as tail color goes. There were some very dark-colored individuals, some light-colored individuals. What was more consistent was a lighter base color throughout the first half of the body. But either way, definitely the most brick red, typical baby color of the clutch right here with this girl. But still absolutely amazing. One that is going to be a holdback, no question. And I really can't wait to see how this animal looks after its first shed and then after all the subsequent ones, because these are going to be maybe my most anticipated babies to watch grow I've hatched to date, which is really saying a lot considering I've probably had one of those every year up until now, but these definitely take the cake. All right, so the last baby of the clutch and maybe the most unique looking. This is the one male from the clutch as well. And as you can see, he has a very interesting coloration, kind of a more on the purple side as far as babies go, which is one of the traits that seems to be somewhat present in this quote-unquote melanistic line. I hatched a baby out in 2023, one that I still have now, that had a very similar appearance to this right out of the egg, and I'll show that girl off in a little bit here. But I'm really interested to see how this guy develops, if he'll have a similar trajectory to that animal. This one has a lot more pattern than that one does, kind of that same thin pinstripey banding that you saw on that last girl. And, you know, getting a little bit stronger towards the mid-body, fading into that solid color tail. But the Barnecks that I've hatched out historically with coloration that was abnormal have been ones that I've been super intrigued by, ones that I've kept around entirely. You know, any sort of difference in these animals could potentially be something in the long run that is either a morph or a new lineage or could be worked out in one way or another. Not that necessarily morphs are what I'm after, but I would be lying if I said it wasn't interesting to me, especially something that popped up within my own collection. I think that would be extremely cool. Another cool aspect of this guy, he has kind of like a highlighter yellow nose right there. Pretty neat. Definitely super different than the rest of his body. But I'm absolutely thrilled by the ratio of this clutch being 1-3 and that this was the male, especially since this other animal that I've been alluding to throughout this clip from 2023 that hatched out with similar coloration is a female, considering that they are only related in one aspect. That is a pairing that I would do in the future to kind of prove out what the heck is going on and whether or not there is something to prove, just see what those offspring would look like. Anything like that is super interesting to me, to produce Barnecks that look nothing like we kind of ever conceived of looking before. All right, so here is mom of the clutch. She was produced in 2019. I did not produce this snake, but I got her, a few of her siblings, and then the mom as well, and have raised her from essentially a yearling, and she is just absolutely incredible. So when she was younger, she was almost super like axanthic looking. So she was axanthic looking to the point where she had a lot of blue tones to her, a lot of silver as well. Some of that kind of faded over the years. You can tell a little bit more of a yellowish tint, but definitely not a regular colored Barneck scrub. And her pattern is just absolutely stunning. So she was 5 years old when she had this clutch. And as we were kind of still in the infancy of figuring out exactly how some of this stuff works with these captive bred scrub pythons, kind of using that as a bit of a benchmark as to when they kind of begin their reproductive lifespan. Obviously, from wild research, female scrub pythons are laying eggs sometimes as young as 3 years old. In the wild, nothing like that has been observed yet, but it is kind of cool to see exactly how some of this stuff works, and if with subsequent generations of captive breeding, they'll start to produce at a younger age, relatively, kind of as the quote-unquote domestication process takes its place. Obviously, many snakes are not nearly what we would consider domesticated, but with that said, every subsequent generation of captive breeding does kind of get them more and more acclimated to the process. So overall, I'm absolutely thrilled to have gotten a clutch from her specifically, from this lineage, and I just can't wait to see what the babies look like. Hopefully this is not the end of it for her, and she'll have many more clutches in the years to come. All right, so here is that female I kept mentioning earlier on in the video. This is a half sibling of the mom of the clutch, and kind of that one that I said hatched out kind of that purplish hue as a baby. She is just over 2 years old now, has done a decent amount of changing, but still has a really unique look, especially down by her tail. Very interesting tail coloration, kind of like almost like an anery overall appearance to her. The mom of the clutch, when she was younger, was very much in that anery axanthic realm, to the point where I thought that animal may have been, maybe even a full-blown axanthic Barneck. As she developed more and more, I'm not sure exactly if I can say that or not, but what I can say is that there's definitely something different going on here with this lineage. This girl obviously is very reduced pattern overall, which is cool because it gives that color really the emphasis in the animal. And she is just absolutely amazing. One that I hope I can get babies from one day. And like I said, pair that male up from this current 2025 clutch to her once they are full grown. So this is a sibling to the mom that kind of has that hypo look as well. I didn't produce this snake, so I'm not 100% sure what she looked like as a baby. But ever since I got her, she was very obviously different. And kind of like that girl we previously looked at, she's really reduced patterned as well. I see a ton of similarity between the two of them. And honestly, the differences really could just be in the sires, that they did not have the same dad. But this girl just shows to me just whatever weirdness is going on within this line is definitely exemplified in this female right here. So hopefully this could be the year where she finally produces for me. I'm very hopeful because getting babies from her would be amazing. It would also kind of further go towards proving what is going on with this lineage. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning into that video. If you liked it, please subscribe here on the YouTube channel. Like, comment, share, do all that good stuff. Hit the notification bell. I do drop a new video every single Friday. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Instagram at Scrub Shepherd, Stephen Cush on Facebook. I'm also on Morph Market under Cush Reptile. There you can find some of my available animals. I also host a podcast every single Wednesday night on the Trap Talk Reptile Network called Cush's Corner. All of the links to all of that is down in the description. Again, thank you guys for checking out the video, and I'll catch you all back here next week for a new one.